in deutsche Bundesbahn-Terms sind wir immer noch überpünktlich. Freue mich, dass ich heute Ihnen präsentieren darf, das Unternehmen Circus SE. Ganz spannender Investment Case. Wir covern ihn auch auf der Research-Seite. Ich werde den Link zu unserem Research auch gleich in den Chat einstellen. Ein Hersteller von Roboter oder autonomen Küchen. Ganz spannendes Produkt. Wenn es kleiner wäre, würde es wahrscheinlich viele Ehen retten. In der Größe müssen wir mal schauen. Bin gespannt auf den Vortrag zum Setup noch einmal ganz kurz. Wir haben eine Stunde Zeit, Präsentation, danach Q&A. Q&A wie immer bei unseren digitalen Veranstaltungen bitte über unsere Chatbox. Das heißt, wenn Sie Fragen haben, stellen Sie diese ein und wir werden sie dann im Zwiegespräch im Nachgang zur Präsentation abarbeiten. Ich wünsche uns viel Spaß and without further ado, I will pass the presentation baton over to Mr. Nicholas Bullwinkel, the CEO. He's joined by Fabian Becker, who is the CFO, and the co-CEO, Mr. Klaus Holtz-Gudesen. Good luck. Looking forward to hearing insights from you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. Since we also have English-speaking participants today, I will do the presentation in English. Questions after the presentation, obviously welcome in German and English, so we can clear out all interesting details. Before we jump in, I would love to start with an introduction, not with one of us three sitting here in the round, but starting with the introduction of our product, specifically since this is a physical and kind of a new invention which probably has not been seen before, and not everybody was able to see or explore it in one of our showrooms like the one in Munich. So maybe we can switch to the video quickly and start with showcasing a little bit of what we're doing at Circus. We are an AI robotics company focusing on the food service market, and with the invention of the so-called CA1, we are bringing full autonomy powered by AI and robotics to the world of food service operations globally.
Hello, CA1.
Hi, how can I help you?
I'd like to eat something. What do you have?
Well, I just refilled myself with fresh ingredients. I can offer you millions of combinations. Should I analyze your profile to make the most suitable meal recommendation?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
It seems like you like Mediterranean food. So maybe some classic warm and spicy penne arrabbiata?
That sounds great. You can start.
So maybe this as a quick introduction from the product side, product that we've developed over the past 4 or 5 years right now on the physical side of embodied AI solutions, together with everything that we've built on the software and AI side. Before we dive deeper into our product and all the details of the business model, quick introduction also from our side. Maybe Fabian, you want to start?
Happy to do so. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. My name is Fabian, as you heard. I'm the CFO of Circus. I have a personal background in banking, finance, and logistics. Before Circus, I built and started a shipping company called Auerbach Schifffahrt, here based in Hamburg as well. Started with a small team in a tight living room, and then together with a few others, turned this into a profitable and very successful company and sold that one in 2021. And during that term, I was fortunate enough to meet Nicolas and then join forces to cover the finance and legal side of Circus. On a private note, father of 3, So if you see me looking tired, it's partially related to what we do here at Circus, but also partially related to that.
Thank you. Maybe handing over to Klaus.
Yeah, my name is Klaus Holsgaardes, and I've just joined the group. I actually started on Monday, and I have a quite long career behind me. I've been 40 years active in business. The last 10 years, I was CEO of German company in the Sauerland, a technical company making fittings and piping system for water and gas systems. And I was very lucky. The product was strong. The owners were great. I had good team, so we grew the turnover the last 10 years from approximately 1.1 billion up to 2.3 last year. And before that, I spent 8 years at the Wehrheim Group, a German conglomerate based in close to Düsseldorf. And at the same time, I was the CEO of Zwilling Henkels, that's the cutlery and cooking products company. And here we turned the turnover from 250 million to 655 in 8 years. We made a few acquisitions, but the growth were mainly organic growth. So at least I can say for the last 18 years, I've had the luck and probably also the capabilities to grow the top line and the bottom line of the companies where I acted as a CEO. And maybe a short look back. Originally, I'm coming from Denmark. I started my career after university at Lego, the toys company. And after that, I worked 7 years in the dairy business, Arla Foods, known for the Booker brand in Germany. And then I also spent 10 years at Walt Disney. So I had a quite broad background based originally in Denmark and Scandinavia, going further over American companies, and now the last 18 years for German companies. And I'm happy to join the company, which I believe has a great value proposition, interesting products, and really playing towards some of the mega trends like the shortage of labor, especially in the food sector. Niklas will talk more about it, and also to the fact that obesity and junk food is a problem for the world. And here we have a solution which helps solve that problem. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Klaus. With that, taking over to a product starting from my introduction. Nicolas Bullwinkel, founder and CEO of Circus, founded Circus in 2021 with a sole and core focus to address the unprecedented challenges in the food service sector, some of which Klaus already mentioned: labor shortage, lack of efficiencies, and lack of overall technology. It's a pen and paper industry, basically, that we're addressing today. Prior to founding Circus, I founded a company called Flink, which some of you might know from the German market, at least. A company founded in 2020, which grew from a handful of people to 12,000 employees in the first year, driven by a very, let's say, dynamic market environment in the delivery sector. Till today, last player standing in the European market for grocery delivery services, and all based on a very strong backbone that we've built. We built the company and built Flink with a strong belief in technology and a strong structure in the back, which is today powering the operations across multiple countries. I exited that company, or my stake in the company, in a 750 million round led by DoorDash back in 2021. At that point, the company was valued roughly 2.9 billion. And basically 2 weeks later, I started what today is Circus. Started from the core belief that there's a lot to change and a lot to address in the food service sector, which obviously is kind of related to grocery delivery sector and warehouse operations. So a lot of synergies also from a software and AI perspective that basically are feeding today what we're building at Circus, at least. Why the food service sector and why addressing that sector as one of the largest industries around the world? It's a $2.6 trillion sector. Everybody has to eat on a daily basis, right? So we have a significant demand on a daily basis from consumers. We have a strong network and complexity of food service operations. But what we don't have is the people to run it. We're missing millions of people as a solid workforce for the food service sector. when we look at an increasing labor shortage across industries, food service is ranked as top one in most countries for that overall shortage. And given the political situation in quite a lot of countries, also looking to the US, with closing the borders or at least changing the dynamic of new workforce coming into the country, this problem will only increase rapidly. We will see a further increasing cost factor on labor cost, simply because you don't have as big as a workforce. We will see less labor available in these sectors. So automation is the only solution that can solve the issues in that industry. Also, when we look at the political dynamics and the decisions being made around the globe here. Despite the labor shortage, there's a bunch of problems that follow the shortage, which is an increase in cost, labor cost, overall fixed cost, and it's a massive inefficiency simply because you don't have the trained and skilled labor, which is always nice to display in a simple number of food waste. We're wasting over 400 billion of food on an annual basis in the food service sector. This number and this amount of food could feed entire countries, but today it's wasted simply because we don't have the processes, there's no technology, there's guesswork, pen and paper business, and inventory management is done with pen and paper. And that's a bit where we come from to address these challenges and solve a massive challenge in one of the largest industries. And looking quickly at the opportunity of the market, not diving too deep into the market economics here, but just where we see the opportunity for AI, for autonomy, for robotic solutions, everything that has developed fairly quickly over the last years. We see the food service market as one of the most relevant industries and one of the biggest industries globally, bigger than automotive, bigger than pharma, bigger than all the other opportunities that you can see at the moment. With an expected growth towards 5.4 trillion by 2030. This is a market where automation, where AI and robotics has a very valid, strong use case and solves a real-world problem that is existing today, while not being regulated as heavily as everything happening in the space of humanoid robots or autonomous driving. We decide to focus on a very specific use case and solve an industry problem rather than go wide and have a general purpose robotics solution. And to finish up on this, this is also what we see in the market and what has been developing over the past years. I love to show that slide, which obviously gives us a good validation of the track we've been on over the past years, coming from generative AI. From a German and European perspective, definitely a race that we're not winning, but moving towards agentic and physical AI solutions. This is where we are strong, where we also see a huge benefit in Germany as a core country to develop and to create the IP. We have strong engineers, we're strong at building devices, and that's also, I believe, what we're proving at Circus, that the whole holistic end-to-end system is what we're good at. To really leverage the next wave of AI in the fields of agentic and physical AI solutions, what also is being predicted from, say, the biggest names in the industry. Jumping with the product, how do we think about our product? How did we set things up on that side? We always call it kind of the body and the brain of food service autonomy. We deeply believe in an end-to-end system. We want to give our customers a holistic solution that they can work with, to not add more complexity and technology to their existing kitchens, but to replace the entire infrastructure and just add one autonomous solution that is kind of idiot-proof to manage. On one side, you have the CA1 robot. We're selling the robot 220 to 250K. Alternatively offering leasing and financing solutions. So it can be a whole OpEx solution, plus always bundled with a stack of AI services as a recurring SaaS model, ranging 8 to up to 15K now on a monthly basis. Sweet spot around 10 to 12K, depending on the configuration and different modules on the software side. And with that being the bundle as one holistic system, we obviously create a strong lock-in effect on the hardware side, while having a high margin business driver on the software side, which creates a very valuable system for our clients on ground with the one-stop solution that they can easily manage. How does that look on the software side? The point that we start the company from, where we also have a lot of insights from previous ventures, like Flink, for example, and where we learned a lot over the past years of how we can build an entire operating system to manage the complexity of food service in one single system. We've divided the system into different modules. This is where also the price range on the SaaS fee comes from, depending on what customers need on ground. What they always want is one solution that can basically take away every component of skilled labor and automate the entire supply chain and procurement processes. What we're offering today are different solutions. For example, on the side of prediction and supply chain, which ingredients to refill, fill, buy, at what price, at what supplier. There is a certain complexity behind. We have partnerships with the leading wholesalers, for example, the German market, and connect everything to our autonomous system, the CA1, and can guide and automate every process in the supply chain to optimize waste and reduce cost on that side. Same on the hygiene side. You can imagine food service operations and kitchen operations are heavily regulated, with Germany being the most regulated country in the world on that side. We have automated every process step on this through computer vision, through sensoring in the hardware unit, and automated protocols of hygiene compliance, task lists, checks, maintenance. Everything that is pen and paper business today comes kind of with the entire holistic solution that we're offering. And obviously a whole control panel of every order step, fill levels of the silos, basically managing the entire hardware domain as simple as possible, so you can run a robot without the need and the skill of knowing how to run a robotic system. As a last, also the same thing on the consumer side. We're also offering mobile applications, terminals, payment integrations, everything you need to accept orders, manage orders, and the backlog, as well as different agentic AI solutions, where just 2 weeks ago, we also announced a planned acquisition in that field, probably the first acquisition in that field globally, with that being kind of a new topic in the whole next wave of AI. How we can right now get better in human AI interaction, get better at prediction, and give operators on ground kind of a co-pilot solution to run operations even more easily and reduce labor costs even further. Finishing up on the product side, quick facts on the hardware. You saw it in the video. We're offering one closed system, and this system it's patented from us with multiple sub-patents as part of the machine. It's designed to work without any human involvement on a 24/7 operations basis. So ingredients are filled into the unit and the unit can run itself. We're reducing labor costs by that 95% plus, while being able to run the entire infrastructure or the unit 24/7 a day, except an hour of cleaning, filling, refilling of the ingredient silos, and doing all of that on a minimal space of less than 8 square meters. So basically compressing an entire canteen and food operation setup down to a few square meters, removing every element of involvement of employees, and being able to cook a single meal in 3 to 4 minutes, and having it always fresh, customized, ready for a customer that orders on demand. Jumping a bit to the point of use cases, who are we building this for? We are not tackling or targeting, jumping into or competing with the local Italian restaurant around the corner. It's not about challenging food service operators necessarily in the quick service restaurant field. We are addressing clients primarily that sell food, but where food and selling food and offering food is not the core business. So we're talking about catering solutions in universities, schools, employee catering, hotels, hospitals, elderly care, up to prisons where we have different inbound interests to do and take over the catering solutions. And obviously a massive field where we're growing heavily on the mobility and retail side, store integrations to supermarkets, airports, train stations, truck stops, everything that you can imagine, where you have a nearly 24/7 infrastructure, gas stations, for example, where you need to offer food, but want to do this as simple as possible and simply don't have or don't want to operate the labor complexity behind that. We are doing this with a bunch of very strong customers that we won as part of generating our pre-orders over the course of the last year, counting some of the biggest names already to our pilot customers and customers in conversation to plan right now the rollout, from a Diakonie to a Strabag to a Berlin Airport, Wacken Festival, different partners that are leading in that industry that we're right now planning the rollout with, planning the integration for something that is completely new. So you can really see these names here as the early adopters of that technology for the German-European field mainly, and then ranging up to universities in Beijing and different setups, and obviously a lot to come from the US market that we're planning to enter this year. In terms of time, maybe just a very quick view. How does that make sense for partners? We can definitely dive deeper into this as part of the Q&A section. Just a very quick look on a, let's say, very conservative case. I will leave out the best case that we also have, just for you to understand how beneficial this can be if you just cover a small portion of your operations on a daily basis and say, okay, I want to just cover a lunch peak, a night shift peak. Like night shifts in hospitals, elderly care is a huge thing. We're talking to a lot of production partners in automotive who need a solution for the night shifts, right? Very simple solutions, very simple problems where we can offer a great solution. Looking at that case, 3 hours of operations on a daily basis, 300 meals sold, very conservative approach here, getting to 700K in revenue on an annual basis, with a conservative estimate of 30% food cost, nearly 10% of waste and packaging, and operations cost being a leasing fee, as well as our software fee, and a share of labor to maintain and refill the silos. You are still left on minimal operational hours with a 30% EBITDA margin, a highly profitable model. When you compare that to quick service restaurants like McDonald's, they're always like in their annual statements around 8 to 10%. So a very, very different structure. And for a restaurant to achieve something larger 10% is close to impossible, simply because the whole chunk of labor cost is eating up your entire margin. You're mostly stuck with 30 to 50% margin, labor cost, which is killing the entire business model and making it very, very hard to offer fresh meals 24/7 or at certain peak times. And this is why you're often stuck with your airport sandwich or more or less fresh meals, or definitely not customized meals as a standard solution at a fair price. Where do we stand today with that, and what do we do over the past year? Prior right now to ramping up mass production of the unit, we started to build an order backlog and to get an understanding of the market and get better in understanding how the demand is spread across use cases, across markets, and build basically a production plan out of the order backlog. Are these all firm orders? No, they're not all firm orders, but that's also not the idea behind this. This is really, consider this, a similar case would be ordering your Cybertruck from Tesla online and paying a certain fraction of the price. This is all done in a very standard procedure for hardware serial production to understand better of how we can move and how we can plan production ahead. Today, we stand at roughly 8,600 units as part of the order backlog. That translates to a revenue potential on the software side of 1.1 billion initially, on the hardware side 1.7 billion. So already a significant demand that we can see from the market based on a very simple and highly valuable business model and a problem that we're solving. There's a real problem existing in the market today, and this is actually mainly inbound generated, right? So we're very lean on the marketing commercial setup today, and really just generating initial interest, and right now are in the process of converting that order backlog with assigning fixed production slots with the start of the mass production for summer this year. obviously just the tipping point and the tip of the iceberg when we look into the global market. We are a pioneer in this market. We are fairly early in this market. And when we started to play around with the robotic arms in kitchens 4 years ago, everybody called us crazy. And today we have a very strong global advantage in the entire domain. We see a market and a need for over 80 million of these automated systems and overall embodied AI systems on the food service side easily when you simply look at integrations into production facilities, overall mobility and retail infrastructure, as well as catering solutions. We deeply believe that this is where the future of food service is, talking about functional food on a daily basis, not talking about your experience meal with friends on a Saturday evening, but everything on a daily basis will definitely move into that direction. And we're here to dominate that sector, with obviously being at the very, very early phase of converting that and of dominating the market in that field with a huge potential. The core part of dominating that market is the setup, right? How can we reach a setup that is easy to scale, that is fast to scale, and where we don't own the entire risk of production? We have built a setup over the past year where we have the full IP ownership of the technology. We developed the patented solution of the CA1 of the robotic unit, and we continue to develop on the robotic side as well as the AI side and the software side. Everything made and built in Germany, mainly in our prototype lab in Munich that some of you participating might have seen already, and operating multiple offices. One in Munich, one in Berlin, one in Hamburg, with a strong set of engineers from all around the globe. On the manufacturing side, we have outsourced the entire process of manufacturing. I will get to the detail of that in a minute, where we deeply believe that owning the IP is important, but we need a scalable solution, an expert to scale production fast and scale on a global level. So production, technical supply chain, as well as service and maintenance is outsourced to third-party manufacturers and partners. So we don't need to deal with thousands of technicians to maintain the units in the field or install the units in the field, as well as assembly and production of the units in the different production facilities. On the other end, we own distribution after sales. So a very similar model to how others do it, like Apple Foxconn basically, and other hardware companies are doing that on that side, so that we can really focus on outsourcing that, focusing on software and IP development in-house. And this is where our high margin is, and hardware here is the lock-in factor, but not something where we need to own necessarily the manufacturing infrastructure. Who are we operating the entire manufacturing process with? We announced that mid-November last year. After producing in Europe with smaller contract manufacturers for the past years, where we also produced the first batch of units, we switched to a way larger contract manufacturing partner towards end of last year. The company is called Celestica, North American-based and global leader in high-tech manufacturing, with over 40 factories worldwide, over 26,000 employees. So a massive institution which definitely knows how to build complex hardware. Originally founded as a subsidiary from IBM and then evolved over time into medicine tech, automotive, aerospace engineering, defense. So they definitely are the right partner for us to build complex hardware and also build it on scale and optimize it for production and manufacturing on scale. Today, we have secured a first production site with them, where we're currently ramping up the mass production of the CA1 to start deliveries around mid this year, with a capacity of up to 20 assembly lines, 35,000 square meters, thousands of people working across the whole campus to secure R&D and finalizing everything for mass production, the entire supply chain, technical supply chain, as well as testing and installation of the units with the partners on ground. We can produce today up to 6,000 units per year. Unfortunately, not in the rolling year of 2025, right, which still counts as kind of an initial ramp-up year of production, where we're setting up supply chain, doing final tests, and you gradually grow in stages from producing the first hundreds of units to 1,000 of units, with certain gaps to make sure that you have time for small iterations, testing, and a stable supply chain. But 6,000 units per year is what we're reaching here, or aiming for, with the first production site that is already active and will ship the first units actually in May, first units to customers around summer this year. And with that, we're standing at a point today where, after years of testing and years of development of software, AI, and hardware on the robotics side, we are the first player globally who is entering serial production of a fully embodied AI system. Actually, not only in the food service space, but when you look at the whole field of embodied AI solutions and fully autonomous systems, you probably don't have too many touch points with autonomous systems in your daily life today. So the whole point of food service operations and having meals provided by robots will be the first touch points in probably everyone's daily life that will pop up over the next month and years, far earlier than humanoid robots and autonomous driving will arrive in our daily lives. And we've tested that and understood that over the last years, with the first units being shipped, some of them that you saw in the video that have been shipped back in 2021, where we done beta tests, understood how these operations are working, and a clear cut of saying, okay, we got it, we iterate, and right now jumping into mass production of the units. And with that, I would hand over to Fabian on the finance side.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let me run you through a few of our core KPIs and our path to profitability. In short, you just heard it with our production partner, signed last November, first production capacity secured. So for 2025, we expect low triple-digit production slots. It is a ramp-up year. Keep that in mind, please. So our teams, their teams, are working on getting the facility ready as we speak. Hence, for this year, it's a bit of a lower capacity than in the following years. The way our business model works, Nicolas has explained it before. We have a very attractive, let's say, north of 80% margin on the software side, as you're used to from software companies. So, and we have a margin on the hardware side, which is a bit more than 10% approximately. So what we're doing at the moment is deploying as many units into the field, driving up the revenue share, the software share of our revenues, and therefore enhancing gross profit margin and turning into a profitable company over time. Revenue outlook will be more specific in Q1 when we give our guidance. So far, only thing we have said is that double-digit million revenue for, let's say, the short-term period, i.e. this year, and then midterm north of 1 billion euros based on the current pre-order demand and also on the capacity we have secured with our production partner. How to achieve profitability from that word, from this point? Let me explain this on the following slide. As said, it's a software business, so we have a very high software component and a respective high margin with that. Beyond that, it's a matter of cost control, which we are actually quite good at. So to give you an example, in 2024, we spent less than 1 million euros on sales and marketing, and therewith managed to generate a high amount of pre-orders secured, as Nicolas said. So the product kind of speaks for itself. Going forward, we will spend 10 to 15% on the R&D side. This is mainly for innovating around the hardware side. This is also ensuring that the software, which is key, remains state of the art. And lastly, we will spend this on adding certain features to the software, which we then in turn commercialize with our customers again, i.e. charge higher pricing. We already see today we have a long list of, let's call it features for the sake of naming a long list of features which we would like to enhance as of today already, which we know customers would like to have. G&A, we are a relatively lean company, so headcount is below 90 persons. They're of 60% engineers, software, hardware, so we're a very technology-focused company, and we will remain that way. Everything else is outsourced, as you heard before from our from Nicolas. So everything around production is outsourced to our production partner. Everything around, at the end of the day, we deliver the technology, and then our partners will make use of it. This in turn leads to the EBIT margin, which we think is definitely doable in the midterm 3 to 5 years. Maybe last word on who is part of the journey with us. So Nicolas is the largest shareholder of the company with around 26% ownership. Management overall a bit more than 30%, including Nicolas. And then before we conducted the listing, we have added the typical VCs, business angels, investors you would add for such an endeavor we are doing. And those 70% in total, somebody is scrolling.
Sorry.
Those 70% of the company is locked for additional 4 years. So you probably all have read this. We made it very clear. When we conducted the listing, we said this is a huge opportunity, but it might require a bit of time. So we all agreed on a lockup period, including Nicolas, myself, and the other management.
Good. Thank you, Fabian, also for the update. With that, I would jump into the questions. Or
Thank you so much. And we do have a few, so I'd be more than happy to jump into this together with you. Questions that, not surprisingly, surrounded the order backlog, the quality of the order backlog, if there have been any prepayments, and how safe that order backlog really is. So the question basically reads, looking at the list, many of those are orders, meaning there has been a prepayment, there is a commitment that we can be sure that those will actually turn into revenues going forwards, rather than indications of interest of some sort.
Yeah.
So maybe to elaborate a little bit on the setup overall, right? The question always comes up from the point of why an order backlog, and right, why did we build things we did with the whole structure of the order backlog. So referring to the question, I think from Sasha, do you have definite orders in your books where clients already made prepayments? So first thing is, on the Celestica side, we are able to accept firm orders from basically end of last year, so kind of a few weeks to go, right? So before that, we had a different production setup with a company called May. We're still in an active relationship with May, but May is a way smaller German, Hungarian-based contract manufacturer, which would not be capable of delivering the volume that is needed. So there's a point where we said, okay, we're not continuing with that path and building up multiple contract manufacturers, but focusing on one larger setup where we can really scale production from that point. We are, with a lot of clients, far beyond MOUs. We have signed a few MOUs in the very start. Today we signed, and over the past month we signed mainly pre-order agreements where you have a lot more exclusivity, where you have initial prepayments as a small percentage of the hardware cost, but really to indicate the production or get an indication of the production capacity, obviously not a firm order. At the current day, we can't give a final or a detailed update on the firm orders that we have received so far. I mean, obviously, falling with the guidance and overall more insights of how we plan to go ahead with the growth of the company over the course of the year. One thing that I can tell you is, you saw we are ramping up a factory. We are producing a minimum of 100 units this year, which is already like full throttle in production. You can imagine that we're not doing that if we don't have firm orders, right? So one thing is what we're able to communicate, One thing is what we already start executing. So there's a lot of news obviously to come on additional partnerships and conversions of the order backlog, where we've definitely achieved already quite some successes.
Thank you so much. I guess this also answers the question whether you can give an outlook on firm orders at the end of Q2. So we'll just scrap that question, go to the next one. If you have companies leasing your product, how do you pre-finance that? What's the chain? Do you have somebody that you work with, or is it something that is completely with the person buying the machine or the company?
Yeah, maybe Fabian, to you.
Different setups here. For smaller amounts, we work with partners, leasing houses, relevant names. For larger amounts, we work with relevant banks who have a lot of experience in let's say, larger financing transactions. Yeah.
I mean, the core, maybe just to add on the business model here, right? So for us, it's about not having the hardware on our balance sheet, but for the partners, it's obviously about having everything OPEX based and not having too much of the heavy upfront investment. So we're always very happy to support and finding the right financing partner. And that makes the business model for them obviously a lot more attractive, and also changes the decision-making process by quite a bit, and fasten things up.
Super. Thank you. Let me go a step back and look at the overall competitive environment, because one question was actually concerning that. How do you see yourself within that competitive environment, and what do you think are your USPs in comparison to the competitive environment, if there even is a competitive environment?
Yeah, I think there's two different angles, right? So one, if we look from the point of fully autonomous systems, right? And if it's a bit of a bigger picture on the overall competitive developments, so looking also in humanoid robotics, everything that is happening that is kind of service robotics in a way, which we are essentially. While you have humanoid robots focusing on basically everything, we say, okay, we don't need legs for cooking, right? We focus on something a lot more specific and try to become very good at this particular task, and owning the market with doing one task, which is already big enough to build easily a massive billion-dollar company. So on that side, we are far ahead, obviously, against everything that is on the market. When you look at the other robotics projects, there's a lot of prototyping going on. There's a lot of trying to figure out how to deal with grip strength and how to make a robot walk. So we don't see any risk on the side of humanoid robot developments, that this will become a competitive factor to us in the short term, probably not only midterm. In the field of cooking robots per se, we don't see relevant competition that is able to deliver. And that's really what's setting us apart, and that's at the very end the only USP that counts. We see a lot of developments in the field. We see a lot of developments in the field of early prototypes, and robotic arms, for example, being integrated into kitchens. Well, our aim is fully autonomous systems and making this a standard component, as standard as a vending machine. And when we look at who is close to this, we don't see a single competitor who is even close to serial production and to deliver this unit on high volume. So 2-3 years ahead with ease.
Great, thank you. You actually opened the door real nicely for the next question, and that is, you're obviously very close to being ready for serial production. And the question reads, what do you think are the obstacles for serial production, and also then for the mass ramp up going forward? What are the challenges that you're facing, and where do you see risks or no?
So maybe one on scaling the product. I mean, simple things on the production side is driven by the political environments, right? So how can we make sure that we have a setup that is not dependent on a single region? We have a production setup today in Asia. We're ramping up a production setup in Texas, probably, or one alternative solution, but in the US. So we have a setup where we can work independent of different regions, being able to ship to Europe from different regions, but are not will not be involved in a conflict between, or potential conflict between, let's say, China and the US, for example. That reduces risk a lot. On the production side, everything else that can happen on production is often because if you're not an expert, you still try to build up your own production lines, right? With having an expert who's taking care of that, we are in very, very good hands to ramp that up. And last thing is obviously maintenance and of the hardware, right, on scale. How do you roll out and maintain? This is definitely one of the hardest things to do with any hardware out there. And this is essentially where the whole operating system, everything that we do on the side of software, AI, computer vision, sensoring, which makes the robot a lot more intelligent, and like in core makes us more a software company than a hardware company, helps a lot to integrate predictive maintenance and have always a good understanding and control of the unit. Give you one example. Every unit in the field and in the future is connected. So we have a constant understanding of what's happening in every single unit across the world. We know when there's a software bug in Shanghai versus there's a pot falling in New York, and we can send over-the-air updates in seconds. So you have an exponential reliability of the system with more and more units getting into the field, where hardware is not the thing that breaks, but it's software bugs, it's software updates, where you need to update the control environment from time to time, and this is easily doable for us.
Thank you. Talking about software and AI, there are two questions that are addressing this. One of them is if you are maybe able to give us an update on the two most recent acquisitions that you've done in this space, namely Fully AI and Campo Group. And the second question, also addressing artificial intelligence, is it seems like you've got your plate pretty full with what you're currently doing. And on the other hand, it seems like you are potentially or keen on addressing additional markets with AI. Does that spoil your focus a little bit? And could it mean that you're spreading yourself too thin? Or don't you see that risk potentially?
Yeah. So maybe first on M&A, and a quick sentence on M&A strategy. So we're not an M&A company, and this is not our core focus. We look out for M&A opportunities where it makes sense to add to the software and AI stack. It's not about growing right now on the hardware side. The robot, how it's built, is kind of a standard setup that fits 80-90% of the use cases, kind of the one iPhone, the VW Golf, and trying to standardize that as much as possible and not touching that too much. So no planned hardware acquisitions at all. On the software and AI side, this is what we're looking at, to basically grow the entire network of software and AI solutions, which always has direct impact on the recurring fees, which have a high margin, so we can constantly upsell into the partners that have already or use our infrastructure and use our robots. That's also what we did with Fully and Campo. With Campo being a player who works with different robotic solutions, but at the core has built a middleware that basically connects to different robotic systems. So for us, that's a very strong addition to the overall software infrastructure, to being able to connect and control more robotic solutions and making it easier for the partners on ground to embed our system together with other robotic systems. But we don't need to offer or build these other robotic systems, let's say cleaning liquids, coffee, and so on. On the Fully side, Fully AI is a player in the field of agentic AI solutions, and we've did earlier this year probably the first acquisition ever in that field, a very new field of reasoning, prediction, and database decision making of an AI. And that's something that fits perfectly into our system. You can really imagine it like a very intelligent co-pilot that sits next to you and guides you through every step of what you need to do. So it really becomes kind of idiot-proof to run a robotic system. And we are in the process of due diligence with both, right? And making sure to find the perfect roadmap of integrating them. It's not about fully integrating them into our product only. We are definitely seeing what opportunities we have to grow the companies and to grow the product, keep as much as possible and get the most value out of this. But both companies bring a strong track record of talents, of clients, of technology IP. So everything will become part of the group overall. The second question was on,
exactly, going into other sectors, markets, rather than your core, and spreading yourself and doing that potentially.
So a bit what I mentioned already, right? So on the hardware side, we're focusing on one core hardware. Hardware is about achieving a high volume of the units as fast as possible, and to lower the unit cost, offer things at a better price, achieve a margin, and so on. So that's a bit where we come from with the order backlog, and that's also where we come from with the CA1, to have one standardized unit that we can scale across countries and use cases. So no plans to broaden the portfolio on the hardware side anytime soon. Obviously, always different ideas and looking out for what's possible, but we're focusing on scaling up the CA1 as a first product to an easily 10, 20,000 units produced on an annual basis as a first core benchmark. Future markets in general, one thing that we definitely see, and where this thought a bit is coming from, and also probably the press statement that you're referring to, is that with customers coming in and checking out everything that we do, they say like, okay, we might not have the need for the cooking robot, but we want to have the entire operating system, or we want to have a part of the operating system. We want to have the supply chain and prediction modules to automate our entire procurement process. And that's a bit where we come from to right now discover this and see how it makes sense for us to unlock the sales part of selling software independent of hardware, which obviously would definitely increase our speed of growth. Right now, the sell of software is always bundled to the hardware. Hardware is kind of limited with the production capacity, right? If you unlock this, we can grow a lot faster with a high margin SaaS model. So that's definitely something that we're looking at without changing the product, just by being able to sell modules that we normally only sell in a bundle with the hardware. So staying loyal to the market, staying loyal to the product.
Thank you. Next question is focusing on the operation of the CA1. Currently, the business model is you sell the unit or lease the unit to somebody who will then operate it himself. Could you imagine in interesting locations to also operate a CA1 yourself, just to maybe gain first-hand experiences, or maybe to just have more locations where you can apply the technology?
Yeah, maybe a fun story that probably not everybody knows. When we founded the company in 2021, the first thing that we did is we rented a kitchen, and everything that we've built is built in a kitchen, right? We sat with engineers in a kitchen to understand everything we do. We sold first meals, trained our own AI, trained our culinary intelligence on it to have an understanding of everything we do. We cook, understand ingredients, understand the software and the interface that we're building. So we kind of did that in the past, and that makes sense to a certain point where you say, okay, we've understood how painful it is. And we did the same thing with the robotic units over the last years, with having first units in the field, also with customers. And today, with having active showrooms where we're basically cooking on a daily basis for potential investors, partners, commercial partners, as well as our own team. So everybody in the team has kitchen service from time to time, right? So everybody has an understanding of how the product works. Not plan to roll this out as a franchise business necessarily, but always good to have an understanding of how it works overall.
Okay, I got 3 more questions left and then we're done. First question that I would like to ask is concerning the Mangal X LP10.
Yeah.
Interesting also the LP in the name. I don't know if you maybe want to add to that a little bit. Can you give us an idea of what the rollout looks like there, if you have any additional orders or maybe also from third parties?
Yeah. So on the process with Mangal and Lukas Podolski, we've made great progress, and I think I posted one picture on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. But it's definitely an experience when you have Lukas Podolski sitting between engineers, trying different meals from the robot, and that's definitely something that excites everyone in the team. So that's already a benefit that we're gaining from it. We've made very good progress on everything with them. With Mangal, it's also about creating a whole new world of culinary experience, right? The Turkish cuisine is not something that we initially focused more on, let's say, the standard bestseller dishes for the typical canteen scenario. So we developed a whole range of new meals over the past weeks and months, from a kebab bowl to different Turkish cuisines and köfte bowls, to signature dishes. There's a bunch of things coming. And there's a whole concept that we basically build, and a whole identity and word that is coming with that, which is not just the Mangal brand itself. That's the only thing I can say up to now. We'll definitely have a lot more news over the next weeks on it, but great progress and a finalized concept that we already have.
Thank you. Second to last question concerning sales and distribution. I think it was you, Fabian, who said that in the P&L, that's an item that's pretty slim. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you actually do sales and distribution and why that number is so low, and if it should stay in that realm, or if you could envision that changing, going up or going down?
I think I can answer, right? I mean, Fabian, feel free to add. So on sales, distribution, marketing, there's a bunch of factors. So one is we have a highly disruptive product, which is new, innovative, feels a bit like Star Trek sometimes, but it's something that is very attractive and something you want to explore. So we have a very clear roadmap for the upcoming showrooms. We're planning Shanghai, we're planning New York, we're planning multiple additional showrooms across Europe and the US. And we have a bit of a first mover task of explaining the entire industry and how robotics are changing this, that food from a robot tastes well, right? It's not only about direct distribution to the customers, but really showcasing the product to the market and a wider audience to gain trust, and with that definitely also gaining awareness, and with that essentially also gaining new clients. So we're growing a lot through visibility, showrooms, explaining and showcasing our product. That's one approach, kind of an automotive approach in a way, but proven to be fairly successful for companies like Tesla. And on a commercial side, overall, we're building up a global team of sales partners. We've already done this and started this last year with having first partners, for example, in China, building up a team in the US, and multiple partners in the European region, which work kind of autonomously, right? Bringing in leads and winning enterprise customers. This is not a business where you need right now 20 key accounters who are doing cold calls. It's not about the field sales. It's really about winning the big clients and winning the enterprises. So the approach here is a bit more unique and leveraging networks of different individuals and partners, and having a strong team of, let's say, sales partners and agents who also work with commission models. I hope
Thank
that
you.
answers good enough.
Yeah. Which brings me to the last question. We've seen that chart that you showed during your presentation with the shareholders. And the last question is regarding your venture capitalists and business angels. What's their commitment like? Are there any lockups? Are there shares that might come to market from that end? Or what's your feeling regarding this?
Yeah, I can take that. Very simple answer. The lockup is still additional. The actual lockup was 5 years. So as of today, it's still 4 years. So this includes the VCs and the angels as well. And secondly, I can say a bit more than 40 million went into the group overall. This includes the VCs and business angel commitments. Quite recently, I got more the opposite questions from most of those angels. I have to say, they have been with us for years and have also some of them have been with Nicolas with previous endeavors. So they definitely see the long-term value and not the short-term gain at the moment.
I mean, we're just getting started, right? So.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for the insights. It's always good to see a new, fresh approach to things and have a company that has a lot of growth potential ahead of it. Thanks for giving us a feeling for the top management of the company, Nicolas, Fabian, and Klaus as well. Welcome on board at Circus. Looking forward to doing additional roundtables in the future with you and everybody else who joined the meeting on the investor side today. Thank you so much for joining in. Once again, we do cover the company and research is available on our research hub. Same goes for the recording of this presentation today, which you will also find later today on our research hub. Nicolas, Fabian, Klaus, if you want to stay on for a few seconds while I say goodbye to everybody else. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Thank you all.